Hello and welcome to Rich Rides. This week I'm doing a long-term review on one of my own bikes, and this is a Honda Shadow 150. So first of all, the looks of the bike, it's your typical sort of cruiser style. So quite wide handlebars, nice comfy position, very low seat. Your feet aren't too far forward. A lot of cruisers, your legs actually, they're called forward controls, and your legs go really far forward. These, they're a little bit forward, but just in front of your hips. So on some cruisers it can feel like quite a strange riding position until you get used to it, where you can jump straight on this and it just feels like a normal sort of style bike. Like most cruisers, it's all about sort of black and chrome. They only do this bike in two colours, like a burgundy metallic and black, but for me a cruiser has to be black really. So this is the black and chrome. That's the problem with Vietnam. People on your side of the road. So yeah, looks wise, it's very traditional. Looks great, I think. It looks far bigger than a 150cc motorbike. We'll come on to the engine in a bit. So your riding position, very upright. Super comfortable seat, and you can move forward or back on it. There's quite a lot of room. I'm 6 foot tall, there's plenty of room for me. Big tank on this, and your legs tuck nicely in it too. So again, your big sort of traditional tank. It's something like 13 litres, which means it's got really good range too. But yeah, and switch gear wise, all pretty much standard. There's nothing fancy at all your standard stuff. So lights, indicators, and horn over on this side on the left, and then over on your right you've literally got your starter button and your lights. So that's all you've got. Mirrors are good, you can see a lot in them, they don't vibrate at all. And then your sort of speedo binnacle, you've literally just got your speed, you've got a fuel gauge which is really handy. And then the sort of aftermarket things, I've got USB power and those kinds of things, but all pretty basic and standard. So onto this engine, like I say, it looks and sounds a lot bigger than it actually is. It's only 150cc. I'm in Vietnam, 150cc is fine for around here. Normally you'd be thinking that as a learner bike, but because the law's here, then small capacity bikes do tend to be more common. It's very rare to get anything bigger than, most things are sort of 150. You do occasionally get some 250s and some imported bigger stuff, but yeah, it's not really a thing here, a big bike. One of the reasons are the roads, so you simply can't go that fast. This road I'm on here is probably the biggest, fastest road around, and you'd be lucky to go up to 100 kilometres an hour on here. So at speeds like this, I'm sort of doing 70 k's here, and 70 to 80 k's just a nice cruising speed. It's super smooth, and it's worth sort of talking about the engine since we're talking about that. So yeah, 150cc 4-stroke. It is a very smooth engine, there's no sort of vibes. Mirrors don't vibrate at all, very little comes through the handlebars and your pegs, even at, like I say, I'm doing sort of 75 here. So yeah, it's absolutely fine. Really good for long distance cruising. This seat is super comfortable, So if I compare this to one of my other bikes, which is a Honda XR sort of dual sport, then this is so much more comfortable, especially on long rides. You can go a couple of hours easily on this seat, where the XR, then you're looking to get off after an hour tops. So in terms of power, I think it's 11 horsepower, so it's not going to rip your arms off no matter what you do with the accelerator. But that's fine for these sorts of roads and conditions in this country. In terms of fuel and running costs, then as I mentioned earlier, it's got a huge tank. It's something that it's either 11 or 13 litres. It does about 100 miles per gallon, which is 40 kilometres per litre, around that anyway. So it just sips fuel. You can go a long way. Because of that huge tank, you can really go decent distance. I think with a miles per gallon figure, it works out to be about between 500 and 600 kilometres on one tank. So for sort of long trips, then that's great, because you're not constantly thinking about when you're next going to be able to fuel up. So the clutch and gearbox are really nice, extremely light clutch. It's a 5-speed box. You've even got a gear indicator. It's very difficult to see in this light with the sunshine on it, but just here in front of your fuel tank, and you can see which gear you're in, and that includes your sort of neutral indicator too. So it's good from that respect if you're used to like automatic scooters and they're just getting used to a manual bike too. So brakes and suspension. The front brake is a single disc. It's not particularly strong. I don't think it's even dual pot calipers on it, so it's not very strong, but the bike only weighs about 130 kilos and isn't going to be going silly fast anyway, so it's adequate, I'd say. It doesn't have loads of feel, but it's got enough. You sort of know what's happening. And then the rear brake, then that's a drum, as you'd expect on this style of bike. And again, it actually feels alright. For a drum, it's quite powerful, and you've got quite a bit of feel as well. So it's good from that perspective. So the brakes themselves are, like I say, for the sort of power of the bike and the speeds you're going to be going, feel okay. So we're going over those bumps, it's a good idea to talk about suspension. So the suspension is really comfortable actually. I think combined with the sort of seat, your positioning and everything, then the whole bike is just very comfortable. So nothing special. The front forks aren't actually that chunky. It's got your usual sort of dual rear shocks like most cruisers. It does a really good job of soaking up the bumps, far better than sort of most things. Even these rumble strips that I'm going over there, you just don't even feel them. So as I mentioned earlier, this is actually my own bike. It's not one just borrowed for a review. So I've had this bike for a year, and in that time I've done a few thousand kilometres. It's a Honda, so it's not broken down. Everything works as it should. So from a reliability perspective, it's really, really good. And as I mentioned before, sort of general running costs are cheap as well. So talking of costs then, and seems appropriate with a Honda dealer there. So, red light. So this bike costs 61 million Vietnamese dong. So in sort of UK money, then that's around £2,000. So for a brand new bike, I don't think there's much, if anything, you can buy in the UK for around £2,000. It's not really a fair comparison when you're in Vietnam to do that though, but it does show though that these bikes can be built at a real budget. Then I'd say quality wise, then it's not as good as the sort of UK Hondas. It's still decent, but it is obviously built to a price. So things like the chrome, then apart from things like the fuel filler cap, then it's all plastic is this. Obviously the handlebars are chrome, and I've got sort of leg guards on this, but yeah, all the chrome work is actually plastic rather than metal. Like I say, it's built to a budget and it's sort of to be expected. So on to my usual things I like and things I dislike. So my top 3 things that I like about this bike. The first is its looks. Then yes, it's only a small capacity bike, but it looks a lot bigger. Most people think it's a much bigger engine than 150cc. And that's probably helped by this aftermarket exhaust as well, so it actually sounds decent. So that's number 1. The second thing is just the general sort of costs. So running costs are cheap, it's cheap to buy, it's reliable, all those things. It sort of adds up to a very cheap ownership really. And number 3 is what a good sort of touring bike it is. As I keep banging on about, then it's super comfortable, it's got a really good range on the tank, it doesn't cost a lot in fuel. I've got panniers and a top box. Another red light runner. So because of that, it makes a great touring bike. It ticks all those boxes. So you've got your storage, you've got a big tank, super comfortable. So yeah, it just makes a great touring bike. Straight through the red light. So any negatives? Then not really. There's obviously it's only a small capacity bike, so it hasn't got a lot of power. So if you're used to a 1200cc cruiser, then this might be a bit of a shock for you. But yeah, it's fine for this country. I think you'd struggle in other countries and bigger roads, but it's fine for here. And then, as I mentioned before, then some things are built to a budget, but it's not an expensive bike, so you can only expect that really. So yeah, so really there's not many negatives at all. So yeah, in summary, it's just a great all-round bike, especially for this market. So here in Vietnam and for Asia, then it ticks the boxes for a really good sort of cruiser and touring bike. So thanks for watching this video. I hope you found it useful. If you've got any questions, then do just ask in the sort of comments. I'll be happy to answer them. Like I say, it's been a long-term bike, so hopefully I'll be able to answer most questions that would come up. If you're new to the channel, please do give the video a like, it really helps, and do subscribe. I do things like this, so sort of riding reviews. I do some rides out here in Vietnam at the moment, and I've got rides in sort of different countries in the sort of archive of the channel. And basically anything to do with motorbikes, then I'll try and make a video about it. So thanks again for watching, and hopefully see you on another video. Thanks, bye.